But is there any part of you that ever considered playing your character as if he might be the boogeyman at
Well,
any
that's a
point?
great question.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.
For people who've read Stephen King's short story, they know that the big shock at the end of that story is that Dr. Harper turns out to be the boogeyman. He was the boogeyman in disguise. Obviously, this movie and the story are two completely different animals and two different things. Is there any part of you that any part of the film that is ever meant to imply that might be the case here? But is there any part of you that ever considered playing your character as if he might be the boogeyman at
Well,
any
that's
point?
a great question. No, I didn't. I didn't play it that way, but I often thought, wouldn't it be cool if that was that was the case, and if there was possibly another movie that maybe I could be the bad guy, you know?
It's not. It's never the case. Chris is never. We never wanted to kind of draw suspicion on Chris as the boogeyman throughout the movie. But there's another therapist character, the child therapist who speaks to the kids midway through the movie. We wanted to make her really sinister, because we wanted to tip our hats to the people who had read the short story, and she kind of subjects them to this awful light exposure therapy where the light flashes and drops the room into darkness, which is a very demonic thing to do. So we specifically shot her in a way that would make her feel creepy, and like potentially she might tear her skin off and reveal that she's the boogeyman.
They really jumped in a whole other direction from the short, which I admired, and I thought it seemed like a natural fit when I read it, but very different from the short story.
I'm a massive Stephen King fan, and one of the things that I love about his work is that all the stories are connected. They all exist sort of in one big universe. If you read one King novel, it oftentimes references another. What is another great Stephen King character you would love for your character to cross paths with, just to see how that interaction would go down?
I mean, for me, the most iconic, and this is bad that I'm forgetting, just Shelley Duvall in The Shining.
Oh, Wendy.
I think that would be chaotic, but I think my character would mother her to some extent.
I'm seeing
strange,
like, the
but
fan fiction in my head is seeing the two of them like kind of like really helping each
but
other.
like
in a lot of
bonding,
ways.
yeah. And I showed, I think I've shown like hairdressers pictures of her haircut because I think her haircut is so good. You know,
like, specifically from The Shining?
Yeah, no, it's so good.
I'm a huge fan of The Dead Zone. You know, Chris Walken is amazing in that film.
The ice is gonna break!
I really loved it. In fact, I thought in the scene that I do in this movie, from the short story with David, I thought David had a Chris Walken kind of haunted Dead Zone vibe to him.
I am a massive fan of the movie Host. And I think for fans of Host, there's a really fun cameo in this movie that I don't want to ruin. But does that mean that Host and the Boogeyman exist in the same universe? Like, are both the spirit and the Boogeyman existing out there together somewhere?
I'm trying to create like a kind of Tarantino universe of scares. I want to try and get... there's a Dashcam reference in there as well, which is the movie we did afterwards, and there's all sorts of Stephen King references peppered throughout. I'm kind of an Easter egg guy, you know. I like to make sure that there's lots of things there for a second viewing.
Can you give me one of the King Easter eggs that I would have missed?
So there's a lot of K's in the movie. There's a lot of S's and K's peppered throughout the movie. So if you look at the opening scene, takes place in a child's bedroom, and it's got the alphabet on the wall, and the alphabet's all in kind of navy blue colors, except for the S and the K. They're both in red, I think. And then later on through the movie, we've kind of like dressed the set so that shadows kind of resemble K's and S's. So it's and then down to like the production designer had like the toothpaste in the bathroom designed, so it's the name of some Stephen King short story. It's like it's crazy detailed.
Okay, so you know, I am always curious. Speaking of Stephen King, for actors in a Stephen King adaptation, what sort of access do you have to him? Like, do you get to call him? Do you get his number? Like, do you get to sort of reach out to him with questions, or is it just sort of a like, look, he's in the distance and he doesn't really get involved?
I was never directly in contact with him, but I knew that he was supporting my first show, Yellow Jackets, and to feel that support felt very good going into it for him to like give me the thumbs up and be like, Sophie, we're good with that. That gave me the confidence to, you know, fully convey the character and hopefully, you know, bring her to life in the way that he had wanted. But yeah, it was never like direct contact, but it was, so knowing that we had his approval was the biggest thing that mattered.
You know, I wish all those things. I would have a lot of questions for him, not only about the film, but his career. No, it wasn't that way. We just kind of dived into the material ourselves with the director and with each other. It became very insular. I'd love to talk to him as a huge fan.
What would be a question that you ask, whether it be about your character, this story, or you know, his career in general?
I think I would ask him about his writing process, and you know, I know he has a book I've listened to. I just would probably delve more into, you know, his origin and what like a day is like in his craft. You know, does he write in the morning? Does he write in the afternoon? At night? Does he have set hours? He's so prolific. So yeah, I would probably annoy him with those questions.
I would be curious about asking him like how far he believes in like the origins of the boogeyman, because I think that's what's interesting. Like the ancient mythos of the boogeyman is so horrifying, but I'm so curious to hear his take on it because everybody has their own preconceived notions about the boogeyman, and grew up with their own, and that's why it's so horrifying, and it was like a daunting task for him, I'm sure.
When you say the word boogeyman, what's great about that idea and that word is that every single person has a different image in their head as to what the boogeyman is, what the boogeyman looks like. How did you decide what you wanted yours to look like?
I wanted the boogeyman to look like it wanted to feel like something that was kind of old and ancient, and like it had been around for generations, and like something that was primordial, that kind of spoke to some ancient evil. We as kids, we call it the boogeyman, but that's just a word that we use. So it didn't want to feel like something that came from the imagination of a child. It wanted to be something that could be scary for both kids and adults, and would almost, you know, make audiences afraid of this creature again.
And what I want to ask about is that scientific list that came out a few years ago, where they rank by science what are the scariest movies of all time. Yeah. And you're number one, dude. Hey, you're number one.
I've got 2 in that list. Ashcam's number 8. Host is number 1.
What does that mean to you? Because I love telling people about that list, because it's a pretty damn accurate. A lot of the movies on there.
They hook people up to machines, and it's medical science doesn't lie.
Is that the greatest compliment in the world, that like a movie has been scientifically proven to be the scariest movie in the world?
It's very silly and very surreal, but it is a fact. After a couple of drinks, it's a fact that I pull out quite a lot. And but you know, I haven't seen Boogeyman yet, so I'm hoping to get 3 on the list before the year's out.
Where we're going, we don't need roads.